All right, hello and welcome everyone to the Circuit Stream AR Cards workshop. Before I continue, I would like to do a quick audio and video check. So if you could let me know in the chat tab on the right-hand side, can everybody hear and see me? Please let me know. All right, perfect. Looking good. Thank you, everyone. All right, so before we continue on the right-hand side, besides the chat tab, you also see a questions tab and a polls tab. I will periodically toss in some polls to see how the audience is doing, and I'll let you know when I do that. So please navigate to the right-hand side there and let me know how you're doing. As well as if you have any questions whatsoever about the material here, please feel free to post that in the questions tab on the right-hand side as well. And that just helps us to keep track of what kind of questions you're getting, and we will get to them in our Q&A session at the end. So stick around for that one. So in terms of housekeeping, I will spend about 10 minutes talking about who we are and what we do here at Circuit Stream. Then I will invite up Jerry Madeiras for the technical part of the presentation. And after that, we will wrap up with a brief Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat here. Susanna, apologies about the sound issue here. I'll try to. Oh, perfect. Amazing. All right, moving on. All right, so my name is Vladimir, and I'm on the education team here at Circuit Stream. I have about 2 years of experience in the tech sector, and I got started at a geoscience software company. And actually, the way that I ended up in Circuit Stream was I went to a conference where we showcased mining equipment, and basically, I saw a HoloLens device where one could stream geological and geophysical maps directly to their HoloLens. And I thought that was incredibly cool. So yeah, super excited to have made the switch here to Circuit Stream, and now I'm on the education team making just that happen. Now, with me tonight is going to be Jerry Madeiras. He is the head of education and lead instructor here at Circuit Stream. He's got over 10 years of video game development and over 5 years of XR development. He is also a certified scuba diver with over 5 years of experience. So I thought that was really, really cool. Make sure to ask Jerry about that. Sounds really interesting. All right, so who are we at Circuit Stream and what do we do? We got started in this industry since 2015, where we saw a gap in specialized XR development, training, and education. And we're actually the first company that has filled this niche now. And now we're about 25 people of all experts in this industry, and we have helped over 30,000 people learn and develop and design their own XR apps so far. Now with that, I'm curious, where is everybody from? I myself am from Toronto. Our headquarters are in Calgary, Alberta. Backstage, I got a colleague with me, Kyle, as well. He's from Toronto, as well as Steph from Calgary. And I'm seeing lots of interesting people here. Marcus from Frankfurt, Wyoming, USA, Orlando, Rochester, Philadelphia. Helen from New Zealand, welcome. Mexico, Hong Kong, Colorado, that's awesome. Yeah, it's always so exciting to host these workshops because we have such a wide and diverse audience here, and everybody comes from all kinds of walks of life here. So it's always exciting to meet all kinds of new people here. Marilee, Saskatoon. I actually spent a couple of years in Saskatoon as well when I first moved to Canada. So good to see you there. 4 a.m. here in Hong Kong, it looks like. All right. So yeah, so for those of you who are tuning in at perhaps a very late hour here, we will record the workshop, and a recording will be provided to all of you here as well as any project resources that come out of this workshop here. Now, Circuit Stream is a Unity certified training partner. And what that means is training partners are selected based on their expertise, quality education, and commitment to providing the highest level of training available. So we are very happy to be partnered with Unity in that regard. It also means that all of our instructors are Unity certified as well. So you can be sure that you're being taught by the leading experts in this field. And besides that, all of our instructors are, like, for example, like Jerry here, they have so much experience working in this field even before Circuit Stream. And everything that they apply in their work, they bring back to us. And pass it on through education here. So you can be sure that the material that they teach will be current and up to date as well. Now, here are some of the interesting customers who we have had the pleasure of working with. So we had folks like from Apple, Hulu, the US Navy, Anglo American, Nike. So yeah, very interesting companies, very interesting and diverse range of products. And it's really cool to see that all of them are investing into XR development and education and training. And it's definitely a very new and emerging technology that people are really starting to pay special attention to now, which is really exciting to see. Now, how do we actually help these people? We have two flagship education programs here at CircuitStream, with the first one being the beginner-friendly XR development with Unity course. Our next cohort starts on February 15th and goes for 10 weeks for 40 hours of class time. And I will get into more detail about these courses a little bit later in the presentation. But we also have a more advanced XR project accelerator course, goes for 8 weeks or 48 hours of class time there. And this one is really meant to work on your existing project. So if you're currently developing something in Unity or developing something in terms of AR, VR in general, with this class, we can really focus in on whatever it is that you're currently working on and provide you special customized help with your project to flesh it out and make it ready for the market there. Now, another thing that we do alongside education here at CircuitStream is one-on-one support and mentorship with our expert developers. So, for example, as I already mentioned, for example, Jerry here has been in the industry for a very long time and is also always working on new XR apps himself. And essentially, I think it's extremely valuable to be able to have this one-on-one sort of mentorship with an industry-leading expert that has had such tremendous experience in this field already. So yeah, huge value there. As well, if you're looking for a bit more specialized courses, we also offer individual courses that go for a bit shorter, from 3 to 6 weeks in length part-time. And with those, you can really focus in on some specific areas about XR development that you yourself are interested in. Now, without further ado, why are you all here today? What are you going to learn? In this webinar, we're going to learn how to set up an AR project in Unity3D. We will also learn how to work with image recognition and image targets, as well as how to conceptualize, design, test, and implement AR designs. Also, we're going to learn how to add effects and animations to an AR postcard. Now, with that, I'm curious. I'm just going to publish my first poll right here. How much Unity experience does everybody have on a scale from 1 to 10? 0 being I've never heard about it, and 10 being you should be up here teaching this stuff with us. Please go over to the right-hand side and let me know in the polls. All right, we got lots of 1s, lots of 2s, some 0s, some 7s and 8s even. That's awesome. Yeah, so for those of you who are a bit more advanced here, if you said 7 or higher, I'll be very curious to hear what you took away from this workshop, and I'm sure we will go over some information that may be new for you. But for those of you who have said 0 or 1, what is Unity? Unity is a free 3D development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences. It is also the easiest way to begin making apps for XR, AR, and VR. And when we say XR, you may have heard this term being thrown around before. That's a blanket term that encompasses augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. And all those three are contained in the term XR, extended reality. Now, how does one actually build their idea in XR? Well, it all starts with your idea here, the light bulb on the left-hand side. You can build your idea out in Unity, push it to an SDK, and from there, you can publish to a relevant device that you're building for. And there's, of course, a little bit more to it than that, and we would be more than happy to talk about it a little bit more. If you do have an idea, please feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be able to offer you some guidance how to make your app a reality there. But now, today is all about making your own AR holiday postcard. And with this, I would like to invite our head of education, Jerry Madeiros, up to the stage to deliver the technical portion. Jerry, come on up. Jerry. There we go.
Uh,
Hey, Jerry, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Vlad. So, hello everyone. Can you guys hear me and see me well? Is it working just fine? All right, great, great. So, as Vlad mentioned, we're gonna be working a little bit today with image tracking and image recognition in Unity. We're gonna be using the XR Interaction Toolkit. But before we jump into Unity, I would like to show you really quickly what we're gonna be doing today. I have prepared here a small app. So let me show you how it looks like, and then we can learn how to build it. So we're not gonna be using any code today. We're gonna be only using the Unity editor and interface, and this is what we're gonna be building there. So I have my image target, and then I have my Santa Claus here, couple of snowflakes. There's some music. Not sure if you're gonna be able to hear that because it's on the mobile, but there we go. So a couple of text, and this is the simplest form of AR that we can build using an image target. So the image here is on my other mobile phone. It could be a printed card or something like that, but today I'm just gonna use a virtual image here. And that's what the image target is. We have an image in the real world, and then we just overlay something on top of that image in the virtual world. All right, so that's what we're gonna be doing. Let me open Unity here and show you guys how to get started with that. Share my screen, share my screen. There we go. So this is the Unity editor. We're going to be working here today. If you have never seen Unity before, this is how it looks like. We have a couple of tabs in here. Which one of those have a different function? We're going to be seeing what they are. But the first thing I'm going to show you guys here is how to set up this project for AR. Given that we're going to be using the not the XR Interaction Toolkit. Today it's the AR Foundation, I'm sorry. So we need to get a couple of things installed. To install those packages in Unity, we need to go to Window and then Package Manager. So the Package Manager is basically the place where we can find the pieces to make Unity more complex. Actually, the Unity editor comes with the basic stuff, but if you want to do VR, AR, maybe more complex 2D animations, machine learning, we need to import package. So they are like add-ons that we can plug to Unity. They are official, they are maintained by Unity, they're just not part of the editor. So the first thing I'm going to be installing here is called XR Plugin Management. So I'm just going to search for XR Plugin Management and install this guy. So this guy is going to make my life easier when I am deploying this application to different devices. So the AR Foundation is supported by Android and iOS and even the HoloLens, for example, Magic Leap. So we can just use the XR Plugin Management to determine where we're gonna publish for and what is the native SDK that we need. So I'm gonna install this guy. The second thing that I'm gonna be installing here is the AR Foundation. So this is the high-level developer tool that Unity provides for developing AR applications. This guy is gonna give us access to the subsystems like the image tracking, plane tracking, face tracking, and all of those things. And one interesting thing about the AR Foundation is that we can build our application only once, like we can design it only once and then deploy it to multiple applications, to multiple devices. So we don't need to do anything specific for Android, specific for iOS, because the AR Foundation is an abstraction on top of that. So I'm going to be installing the latest version here, which is 4.1.1. And the last piece that I'm going to be installing as soon as this one finishes is the AR Core plugin. So given that I'm going to be building today for Android, I'm on a Windows, I don't have a Mac here, so building for iOS would be a little bit more complex. I'm going to be building this to an Android device. Every time they want to build things for the Android device, we're going to use the AR Core XR plugin. So I would just install this guy. If you want to publish your application to iOS, in this case, you need to install AR Kit. And you can have both in the same project. That's not a problem. I'm just going to not install AR Kit today because I'm not going to be using it. The XR plugin management that we installed and the package manager, they're going to help us to have everything that we need in here. So if I want to publish, for example, for the Magic Clip, I will have this guy here, which is the Magic Clip XR plugin. So basically, we need to develop our application once and have all of the providers here just to publish them to the different providers. So now that I installed those guys, one thing that is very important here, and Unity makes it a little bit confusing. Every time that we install the AR Foundation, we need to install the plugins in the same version. So I installed AR Foundation, where is it? AR Foundation version 4.1.1, and I probably installed the AR Core in another version. That's why there's lots of errors here. So if that happens to you, just select the newest version here and update. I don't know why Unity doesn't give me the newest version, just because, well, maybe because it's not the most stable one, but it works quite well. So one thing that is important here, AR Foundation is one version. The AR Core, AR Kit, or all of the other plugins, they need to be in the same version. Otherwise, we're going to have a couple of errors in the console. So they just disappear because now I have them in the same version. And that's it. So now that I have this thing, I will change a couple of properties here just to make sure that my project is ready for AR in the and in the Android platform. So I'm going to go here to File and then Build Settings. First thing I'm going to do is switch it from PC, Mac to actually Android, because in the future, I'm going to be publishing this to Android. So I'm just going to click here on Switch Platform. As soon as we do, well, it's actually good to do this like first thing in your project, because it's going to re-import every single thing that I have. So if you have like a super giant project with lots of textures, lots of modules, and we switch that in the end, it's going to take longer. So now here, for example, I already have a couple of assets, and it's going to re-import all of them. So what I usually suggest is, as soon as you create a project, you decide what is the platform, and you just switch that. So I will need to wait a couple of minutes here or a couple of seconds here. So while this thing finishes, let me see the chat. Can you write those three in the chat? I can. So it's XR plugin management. AR Foundation and AR Core. That's it. If you are using iOS, so in this case, you need to switch to iOS here. And you need to install the AR Kit instead of AR Core. So for iOS, it's AR Kit. There we go. Maggie, when creating a project, are we choosing mobile 3D or AR? Actually, just choose 3D, and that's it. And there's another question here. If it's going to be recorded. Yeah, so it's going to be recorded, but not the chat, only the video. Is it impossible to create this project if I have an iPhone 5? That's a good question, and I think so. I think that the iPhone 5 is not going to support AR Foundation because of the camera, so I don't think so. But there we go. So we have everything here. A couple more settings that we need to take care of while we're building for Android. So I'm going to click here on Display Settings, just repeating that, how I found this thing here. File, Build Settings, and then Player Settings. This is going to show me what are the specific settings that I have per platform. So for Android, for example, I can change a couple of things here. Given that we are working with AR Foundation, there are a couple of things that we need to change, and they're going to be here in Other Settings. So the first thing that we need to change is actually, they are not in Other Settings. They are, yeah, they are. So the first thing is the Graphics API here. So AR Foundation doesn't support the Vulkan API, so we need to remove this from the list. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to build. So first thing I'm going to do here, just remove this guy. And of course, everything just takes some time. So while this does, let me just check the chat here. I have an iPhone. Can you show the settings? For the iPhone, you don't need to change those settings. So this is for Android, specific for Android. So if you are building in the end for iOS, you don't need to change anything here. It's just that Android is a little bit more complex than iPhone. Like iPhone, all of them are standardized. They have the same APIs. They have same updates. It's like just one manufacturer, which is the Apple, making everything. For Android, is a little bit more complex because we have lots of vendors out there. Android is open source. So we have, like, for example, Samsung that is making their version. We have Google with the Pixel, and they have other versions. So a couple of things in Android are a little bit more complex than in iPhone, like the technology. But for iOS, it's a lot more easier. Can you tell what the graphics API do? Is Vulkan deprecated on? That's a good question, Vinita. Actually, the graphics API is basically the language that's going to be communicating with the GPU in the mobile phone. So basically, it's going to transform all of our graphics into instructions that can be read by the GPU. And the Vulkan is not deprecated. Actually, Vulkan is the newest one. It's like the best thing that we have. But lots of devices doesn't support Vulkan API yet. So only the newest ones, they support it. And AR Foundation doesn't work well with the Vulkan API. So that's why we removed that from the list. But actually, Vulkan API is the best one. It's like the newest one. Let me see. Out of curiosity, can we export to OpenGL and get the same functionalities in a web browser? Not really. We can't. Because OpenGL is one language and WebGL is another one, completely different. So it doesn't work. Those are things here. They're gonna rely on the phone camera and sensors that exist in the mobile phone. So it doesn't work in web on the web browser. All right, so that's the first thing. The last thing that we need to do here is change the minimum API level. So basically, this is how new we want the Android to be in order to run this. AR Foundation works with API level 24 and greater. So we need to set the minimum one here to API level 24. And that's what we need to do here in order to have access to AR in our mobile device. The last thing I'm going to do is, remember that we imported the XR plugin management. This guy is the one that tells us what we're going to be using in order to deploy this application, like what are the native SDKs that we're going to be using. And in this case, I'm going to be using AR Core. So I'm going to click here on XR plugin management and click on AR Core. If you are in a Mac, you probably have the iOS support here. I don't have it because it's not installed. It's going to be very similar, just going to be telling iOS. You click on that and select AR Kit. So it's very similar. So that's the last step here. And all right, now our project is completely ready for AR. We have everything that we need installed. We have everything that we want here to be able to make this thing work. So now let's start with our scene. We need to set up a couple of things in our scene in order to make our AR application work. The first thing is here in the hierarchy, and the hierarchy is the tab in Unity where we have every single game object, every single object in our scene. So by default here, we have a camera and a light. So those are game objects. They are in the hierarchy. We need to have a couple of special components for AR. And they are available because we installed the AR Foundation. So in order to have access to them, we're going to right click here, go to XR, and everything that is XR related is going to be right here. The first component that we need to have is the AR Session Origin. So I'm going to click here in AR Session Origin, and this is going to create this object for me. So what this AR Session Origin is basically one object that's going to be detecting where my device is, like the origin of my device in the real world, and transmitting that information here. So I cannot position objects here based on the scene coordinates because they are not matching my real world. So it doesn't matter if I place, for example, my camera here on the 10 meters, it doesn't mean that it's 10 meters in my real environment. And AR is all about overlaying things in the real environment. So that's why we have the AR Session Origin. This is going to detect where the device is and determine where the scene starts based on where I am in the real world. So this is the Session Origin. As a child of this guy, we have the AR camera. So the AR camera is very similar to a regular camera in Unity. It's a component that's going to be rendering our objects in here. But we can see that we have some different objects here, or different components. The first one is the pose driver. So this guy here is going to be basically detecting if I am moving or rotating my device, and then moving and rotating this virtual camera here accordingly. So that's what we need to create, AR session origin. It's going to have the AR camera automatically. And now we can get rid of our main camera in the scene, because we only need the AR camera. We don't have, or we don't need to have multiple cameras right there. By default, Unity always creates an AR, a default camera. So we don't need that. We can just delete this guy. So that's it. Every time that we want to create an experience in AR, using AR Foundation, we're going to have the AR session origin. The second thing that we need to have, and we're going to right click here, XR, and select AR session, is the AR session. So this guy is gonna manage the life cycle of our AR application. So if we tap on the screen, for example, this is the guy that is gonna get if that's happening. This is like a mandatory object that we need to have, and this is gonna be managing the life cycle of our application. So, all right, those are the default components that we need to have: AR session origin, AR session. It doesn't matter what is the AR application you're building, you always need to have those two. Now, we're gonna start to work with our AR card. We're gonna be using image recognition for that. So the first thing that we need to have is a library that contains all of our images that we're gonna be tracking, that we wanna track. And this guy, to create that, we're gonna go to the project tab, not the hierarchy this time. Right click here, create XR, and then reference image library. So this library here is basically a container for every single image that we want to track. We can give it any name, so I'm just gonna go at the default one, which is reference image library. The name doesn't matter, it can be named any single thing that we prefer. And then here we can add one or more images, and those are the images that I want to track in the future. So I'm gonna go click and add the image here, and now I have a space to drag one image. So in this case, you just need to find what is the image that we want to track. So if it's the business card, or if this is the postcard or the Christmas card, whatever you want, you just need to have that image here. So I already have one image that I separated for using here. This is that. One thing that we need to be aware of is that we need to use images that have contrast. Like this one, for example, we have lots of contrast here because we have different colors. If the image doesn't have contrast, the tracking is not going to be good. So it's going to be flickering. It's going to lose the tracking. So we need to find images that have high contrast, such as this one. To import this image inside of Unity Editor, we just need to right click, or we just need to select this image and drag that. So now that I dragged it here, it's an asset inside of my project here in the projects tab. And I can just basically drag that here in my reference image library. So now this image is gonna be tracked. We can actually track this image. I'm gonna show you guys in a while how to do that. Another thing that we need to do here is specify the size of this image. And the size here is the physical size in the real world. So we need to actually measure your image and know how big it is. Today, I'm gonna be using my phone. So the size of my image is basically this here. I need to measure that and check how big it is. So my image here is 9.5 centimeters. Given that this physical size here is in meters, I need to use 0.095. So this is going to be 95 centimeters. No, not 9.5 centimeters, actually. So 95 centimeters would be something like this. This is 9.5. So this is the physical size of the image in meters. One thing that you probably notice here is that I only inputted the width and the height was calculated automatically. This is because Unity just calculates the proportion of this image. And if I give it one of the dimensions, it can guess the other dimension as well. So that's what we need to do. Now we have the library. Now, given that we want to use this library to track any image, I'm going to select the AR session origin here and add a manager. So in AR Foundation, we have one manager for every type of tracking that we want to use. So if we're doing plane tracking, you're going to use a plane tracking manager. If you're using face tracking, it's going to be a face tracking manager, and so on and so forth. Today, we're going to be using an image AR tracked image manager. So this is the manager that I want to add here. So just to repeat this step, click on add component. Then we search for the image or something like that. And then we're going to be adding this guy, which is AR tracked image manager. So perfect. Now we have the basic setup to add everything that we want here for this application in AR. We have the AR session origin. We have the AR session. Our session origin already have the AR tracked image manager. Now we need to give this AR tracked AR tracked image manager a reference to the library, because we can have multiple libraries. So I just need to drag this library here under the serialized library. So now I'm just telling this manager to use this library to find images. So as soon as I build this, when I point this out to any any image that exists in this library, it's going to start tracking that image. We only have this one, so that's basically what we need to do here. Just add this reference there. And now we need to instantiate whatever we want to place on top of that image. And this is going to be our tracked image prefab here. So now we start our design portion. We want to create whatever we want to add to our experience. So let's start with that. The first thing I'm going to do here is I will create one reference for my card, so I can position my things in relation to the card. So in order to do that, given that my card is a rectangle, I'm going to be creating here a quad. So right click, 3D object, and then I will select quad. So quad is basically a plane. It's a plane with a simple plane, basically this here. In order to add our image here so it becomes our reference, we need to override the material of this plane. So I'm going to be creating one material here. Right click, create, and then material. Material in Unity is basically something that determines how a surface is going to be rendered. So we can make that transparent, for example. We can make that emit some light or anything. So here I'm going to be just creating this material, and I will call it reference card material, something like that. The name doesn't really matter. You can use whatever you prefer. And we will change the type of this material. So instead of using standard here, I'm going to be using unlit texture. So the difference between the standard is that the standard responds to light. So we can see that depending on how the light is bouncing in this material, it's more illuminated in one side than in the other. The unlit variation is going to ignore lights completely. So I'm going to be using the unlit texture here. And the texture of this material is going to be my, my card. So now I can just drag this material in the plane, and I have that to serve as a reference. Later on, we can disable this guy or even destroy this. It's going to serve only for us to know where the card is and where I want to place my objects based on that card. One thing that is good to do here is actually make the size match the physical size of the card, because by default, Unity uses 1 by 1 by 1, and this is in meters. So actually, this plane is 1 meter by 1 meter. I want it to be a lot smaller, so I want it to be 0.095 because that's the size of my card. And the same I want to do in Y here. So it's going to be something like this. Now it's a lot smaller, but it's in the right proportion. So it's 9.5 centimeters, 5.9 centimeters here. Another thing that we probably want to do with this card is rotate that to make it be facing up like this. Because in my experience here, I'm going to be testing with the mobile phone in this position. So actually, this is not mandatory, but it's going to make a little bit easier for us to test here. So I'm going to be rotating that guy 90 degrees. So now this guy is facing up. And now we can start adding whatever we want on the top of this card. What I'm going to be doing here is, given that we want to have lots of objects, like we want to have the Santa Claus, the elves, and the text, and all of those things, I'm going to be grouping them together. So to make that in Unity, we need to create an empty game object. So an empty game object is basically one game object that's not rendered. It's just here in the hierarchy, and it can have children. So I'm going to be renaming that to AR card or something like that, and make the quad a child of this guy. So now if I move this, the quad moves as well, and we can have multiple objects right here. Cool. So this is the basis of our card. And now what we need to do is add whatever we want to add here. So say, for example, I want to add a cube. So I can just right click here, 3D objects and cube. Every time that I create a primitive in Unity, it's going to be 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. And that's not compatible with my AR experience because my card is tiny. So I will be making that cube 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1. So this is 10 centimeters. It's still super big. So I'm going to make that even smaller. So now this cube is 1 centimeters. Oh, not here, 0.01. There we go. So now this cube is actually 1 centimeter. And we can see that we can test that on top of our card. We can just position that wherever we want it to be. So if I just build it now, it's going to recognize my image and place this cube on top of that. Of course, I don't want to just use the cube. I want to have something more interesting there. So I'm going to be deleting the cube. If you don't have a nice model right now there, just use the cube or a sphere or wherever you want. After the workshop, I'm going to be sharing this entire project with lots of interesting models for you to play with. So you can just use them. So now what I want to do here is I want to add a couple of interesting objects in this card. So I'm going to be adding the prefabs that I already have here for the Santa Claus. I'm going to drag that as a child of the card. Again, this is huge. It's like 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. That's not what we want. I want it to be a lot smaller. So maybe 0.04, 0.04, and 0.04. Still big, I think. I can make that smaller. Oh, maybe 2, 2, and 2. So now it's 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. I think that's a little bit better. We can see that it's not facing the right direction. Like I want it to be facing the other side. So I can just rotate this guy like this. Probably 90 degrees, 180 degrees here. Now it's facing the card. Another thing that I noticed here is that this guy is quite dark. So this is because in our scene, we only have one light, which is this directional light here. The directional light in here, it works like the sun. It only, it's like a very powerful light that is far away from us. So the position doesn't really matter. Only the direction of this guy matters. So what we can do to improve the lighting of this guy is actually rotating the directional light. We can just rotate that until it's facing the Santa in a way that we want to. So this is basically the directional light. There are other light sources in Unity. So if you want, for example, to create point light, it's like a light bulb. You can just create that. It's like a directional light. It's different from the directional light. The position really matters. So you can actually play with that around and just add wherever you want to add. So I'm not going to add this light. Oh, actually, yes. Let me just leave this light here. And one thing that you probably notice is that everything in my card, everything that I want to have in my card, I'm basically just adding as a child of this AR card here. So when this is instantiated, every single thing that exists here is going to be instantiated as well. So let me add a couple more elements here. So I'm going to add the elf here. Again, this guy is big. Now this one is not big. So this is in the correct scale. I can just add this guy wherever I want it to be here and maybe rotate that as well. And let's add another elf, which is a girl here. This is big, so I want it to be 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. I will rotate that 180 in Y as well, and just position that. So there we go. Now we have our 3 elements in here. We can play with them a little bit more later. But I would like to add the text as well. So you have, when I shared the final application, there was a text in there which said Merry Christmas. So if we want to add a text here, we need to have something called a canvas. So to create a canvas, we right-click UI, and then we select a canvas. A canvas in Unity is basically where we add user interface. So we can add buttons, text, sliders, wherever we need. One thing that we need to notice here is that there are 2 more important ways of having canvas in there. The first one is the overlay, screen space overlay. So when we select this option, every single thing that we place in the interface is going to be on top of everything. So this is useful for making heads-up display or making interface for regular mobile applications. But for AR, we always use world space. So world space basically gives me the ability to position this text or the buttons or whatever you want in any position in the world. So what I'm going to be doing here is just changing that to world space, and then it requests the camera. We're going to be dragging the AR camera here. So now this is our canvas. Again, I want this canvas to be instantiated with the card, so I'm going to make that a child of the card. I will position that on the 0, 0, 0. So it's going to be in the same position as the card. And it's super huge, like it's very, very big. So we're going to be changing the scale of that to 0.002 as well, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. So we can adjust that in a better way later. So now what I want to add to this canvas is actually text. So if I want to add a text there, quite easy, right click, UI, and then text. There are 2 ways of adding text, the legacy one or the regular text in Unity and the Text Mesh Pro. So I recommend using the Text Mesh Pro because it looks better and there are more customization options in there. So I'm going to click here to Text Mesh Pro. If you want to use the Text Mesh Pro, we actually need to click on Import TMP Essentials here. This is going to import all of the assets that we need in order to use TMP, Text Mesh Pro. But that should be quick. And there we go. So now we have this text here. This text is super big. I want it to be smaller. So 0.02, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. Now it's a little bit better. We can position the text wherever we want it to be positioned. So I can just, for example, select my text here and position that whatever I want it to be. And we can change the text here. So just select the text, and here we can change that to anything. So it can be, for example, Merry Christmas. The font here is not the most beautiful one. Actually, we're just using any like default font that comes with Unity. If you want to use a different font, I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing that we need to do is actually have any font which is, let me extract this here, 1 second. We just need to use any font that is true type. So we can use the fonts that we have in there. Like I just downloaded this Holy and Berries here, which is a beautiful font, but you can use wherever you want. So there's an extra step here to use different fonts in Text Mesh Pro. I will drag this guy. So I import that as a font file to my project. But in order to be able to use this guy in the Text Mesh Pro, we need to convert that into a font asset. So I'm going to go here to Window, and then Text Mesh Pro Font Asset Creator. This is the tool that's going to allow me to drag a font here and click on Generate Font Atlas. This is going to create an atlas for our font, and then we just need to save that anywhere. And now, if I want to change this font here, I'm going to select the Text Mesh Pro, and then one of the things here, one of the properties here is the font asset. So I'm just going to change that from the Liberation Sans, which is the default, to my Holy and Berries here. So now I have my beautiful font. I can change the size, I can change the color, I can change lots of things here. But we're going to be changing the color in a while using animations. So that's it. Like we have the objects here, we have the text here. I'm going to show you guys how to create sequences of events without code. Like I want those guys to appear only after a couple of seconds. I want this to animate. So how can we do that? We can actually select our AR card here, go to Window, Sequencing, and then click on Timeline. So the timeline in Unity is, of course, a timeline where we can sequence a couple of events. So we need to create a director component. So when we go to Timeline, let me repeat this. I just selected the AR card, go to Window, and then Sequencing, Timeline. And I'll click on Create here and just save it. So now I have this timeline, and this timeline is going to allow me to place different tracks here and determine what I want to happen in those tracks. So for example, I don't want those two guys to be enabled in the beginning, those two elves here. So I will need to create here one track, just clicking on this button, which is the activation track. In the activation track, I can decide what I want to activate. Let's start with the elf boy here, for example. And then I can decide whether in time I want this guy to be active. So for example, I want it to start being active only in 5 seconds after my timeline is playing. So in the beginning, this guy doesn't exist. 5 seconds, it just appears here. So we can determine that either in seconds or in frames, they start and the end, or the duration. So I want the start to be 5 and the duration to be, for example, lots of seconds. So I just want this guy to be active for a long time here. I can duplicate this by clicking here and duplicate and dragging now the elf girl here. Now the same behavior is going to happen. Like after a couple of seconds, those two guys turn enabled. I can do the same thing for the text. So I can just duplicate it and drag the text right here. I can make the text appear a little bit later. So I can just sequence wherever I want to sequence here. Another thing that we can do, which is super cool, is adding sound effects. So if I just create one more track here, which is an audio track, I can drag audio clips, and I have a couple here. So I want, for example, the ho, ho, ho to be right in the beginning. So I can just drag that right to the beginning here. We can determine how long it's going to be, we can go here to editing and trim that based on where is the position of this line here. So I can just go here to edit and trim the start. So it's going to delete that, for example. Or I just want this first part of the audio, so I can go here and trim the end. So here I have this audio that plays here. I can have more audios. For example, I have this sound, which is the music tab here. So I can just drag that here, and now it's going to play. So this is an easy way to create complex applications without coding. Of course, it's not possible to do every single thing just using those resources here. But the majority of the things like animating, adding audios, enabling and disabling objects, we can basically just create them. Let me show you guys how to animate like this text. So I want, for example, not the text to just pop as it popped here, but I want it to fade, for example. So in order to do that, we can just select our canvas here where we have the text. Go to Window, Animation, Animation. Then this is another timeline in Unity that allows us to change properties over time. So if I want to make my text go up and down, I just need to change the Y property over time. If I wanted to change color, I just need to animate the color over time. So the first thing is we need to create a clip. So I'm going to be creating a clip here and give it any name. So I'm just going to call that text animation. And then we have a timeline here based on the time. And we need to add what are the properties that we want to animate. So for example, here, what I want to do is animate the text, which is a child of the canvas. And the property that I want to animate here is the color. So I'm going to be using the font color property and click on plus. So now I can animate that over time. And if I have this scene side by side here, I can see how it works. So what we have here, those symbols here, they are keyframes. So keyframes are basically values over time. So if I change something in the first keyframe, it's going to interpolate the values in between the next keyframe. So say, for example, I want this to start completely transparent. I'm just going to add the alpha to 0 here. And given that in the last keyframe, this is 1, it's going to interpolate from 0 to 1 during 1 second because my timeline is 1 second. So this is basically how we make an animation in Unity. If you want to animate the position as well, we can just click here on Add Property, and then we select again Canvas, Text, this time Rect Transform, because the Rect Transform is the one that holds the position and the rotation. I will select the anchored position here, and we can just animate the Y over time. So the initial Y is 2. In the last one, I can make it 4. No, 4 is too much. 3, still too much. 2.6. All right, that's good. So now it's going to interpolate not only the alpha, but also the position. So we can create our transitions like that. And that's basically it. Now you can unleash your creativity and add whatever objects you want to add here. The only last step is after we finish creating whatever we want here, for example, I just added all of those stuff to this AR card. We need to transform this guy into a prefab so we can instantiate that. Easiest way to make something into a prefab is just select it and drag it here to the assets folder. Why it's not allowing me to do it? What is missing? I'll select this and drag that to the project. That's what we need to do. Let me create a prefabs folder here just to organize it. Prefabs. And I will select this guy, drag. That's weird. It's not allowing me to make that into a prefab. Never seen this behavior before. Why is that? It's just a game object, so I should be able to drag it here. Let me try something else, just to see if it's my Unity going crazy. No, it's not. So I was able to create this AR card. So this guy's here. It has lots of things. Oh, now it works. I didn't change anything. Anyways, don't know what happened here. Just Unity being crazy. So what we need to do is actually just select anything in the hierarchy and drag that into the assets folder or any folder under the project here. Now it becomes a prefab. A prefab in Unity is one object that we can have multiple references, so we can instantiate as many as we want, and we can change them. And they're going to change all of the instances. So a prefab is basically like a template that can be instantiated in runtime. So now that we created this guy as a prefab, we need to determine here in the AR session origin, in the tracked image prefab, what is the object that we want to instantiate when the image is found. And in this case, it's our AR card. So what I'm doing here is the AR tracked image manager is going to try to find any image that is in the reference image library. In this case, we only have this guy. As soon as it finds this image, it's going to instantiate whatever we have here in the tracked image prefab. In our case, our AR card. Our AR card holds a couple of objects and animations. So basically, that's what's going to appear when we build this application to the device. And that's it. That's basically how we create a simple image tracking AR prefab. The last thing I would like to show you guys here is an easy way to make the snowflakes. We added a couple of snowflakes to the original application, so I'm going to be adding them here as well. In Unity, we have something called the particle system. So I'm going to right-click here, click on Effects, and then click on Particle System. So a particle system is basically a system that emits a tiny image, and we can change the behavior of those images. We can use the particle system to make smoke, fire, well, wherever you can think about that is composed of small particles like that, and snow as well. So I'm going to be using this guy to make something that looks like snow. First thing that we need to notice here in the particle system is that it's composed of multiple subsystems. So a couple of them are mandatory, like the emission. So if you don't have the emission, nothing happens. A couple of others are actually just by design, you can add them. For example, color over lifetime. You can change how the color of a particle changes over lifetime. So we can make them start white, for example, and then in the end here, be red. So they start white and then they go red. For this, no, we don't need the color over lifetime. What I'm going to be changing here first is the shape. So the shape of the emitter here is a cylinder or a cone. I would change that to a box because I want to be able to emit that from anywhere in my scene, in my camera. So I'm going to be changing the scale of this box. So basically, this is the area that's going to be emitting our snowflakes. They're going up here, which is a little bit weird. I want them to go down. So I'm going to be rotating them minus 90 degrees, actually 90 degrees. So now they're facing down. This is already a simple snowflake system, but we can make it a little bit more realistic by changing a couple more things here. So for example, the starting speed is set to 5. We can change that by clicking in this arrow and selecting random between two constants. And then now we can select a random number. So I want it to be something between 1 and 8, for example. So now they have different speeds. That's something that happens in real life. We can determine the lifetime as well. So we can change when they start and when they end. We can change a lot more things here. So we can change, for example, the size. What is the size? Start size. So the start size, all of them have the same size. It's 1. So we can just select here random between two constants and make, for example, 0.5 and 1.2. So now they're going to have different sizes as well. And there we go. We can change lots of things here. We can change the velocity over time if you want to make them behave in different velocities like this. So now they're going to have a sideways velocity here. So we can change whatever we want. There are two ways of using this particle system. We can use them in the AR card, or we can add them, as I'm going to do here, as a child of the AR camera, and position them in the 0, 0, 0. So now they're going to be in the entire screen. Where is the camera? Let me just check where the camera is. So the camera is here. 0, 0, 0 is actually not that good. I need to push them a little bit forward. So now we're going to have it in the entire scene, not only in the card. So that's one way of creating smoke in there or snow in there. And we can customize a couple more things here to make them look even better. But I will add it to you guys. That's basically what I would like to show here, how to set up the scene for making AR projects based on image targets, how to get creative and create a couple of elements in here. So now it's with you. I will invite Vlad back here to wrap up, and I will come back to answer any questions you may have.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Jerry.
See you
and all webinars. I'm always learning something new there myself, so it's always exciting to watch these. And again, we will circulate a recording to everybody here who has signed up, as well as we'll provide all the project resources that you saw here in the webinar as well. Now, going forward, I'm just going to share my screen here. 1 second. All right. So hope everybody enjoyed the webinar, at least as much as I did here. That actually brings me to another poll. On a scale from 1 to 10, I would be very curious to know. So just feel free to go to the right-hand side here and let us know on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the workshop here? That really helps us, sort of gauge how we're doing with the workshops here and helps us tailor what we should be covering next time here as well. So thank you so much, everybody who's answering here. All right, looking good. Okay, so moving on, I'm just going to wrap up some of the things here about us again before we jump into the Q&A. So feel free to stick around for that one here. But yeah, I did want to show you a few examples of the students who we have worked with before. An interesting example here being Mike Oakes. He's got over 16 years of experience in IT and database engineering. He took our 10-week introduction to XR development with Unity course, and now he's working at Unity as a developer. So that's pretty interesting, I think. Another great example here is Jennifer Swan, who is a VR content creator now. Again, she took our course and has been accepted to the Oculus Launchpad program. And for those of you who are not familiar, we can drop in a link here in the chat. But what the Oculus Launchpad program is, basically, it's a panel of judges where Jennifer presented her app idea. And she has received over $30,000 to work on her project there through the Oculus Launchpad program. So we're very happy for her there. Another good example here is Matt Delalo. I'm not sure if you have any poker players in the audience here, but his company, Lucky VR, created Poker Stars, which is the largest online VR multiplayer poker game. So if you're curious about that one, feel free to check it out. It's a pretty cool game there. All right, so as promised, a little bit more about the courses and how it's all going to work. So our flagship program here is the 10-week XR development with Unity course, where we will work together with you to make your own AR or VR experience by the very end of it. And again, this is an introductory level beginners course. So if you answered 0 or 1 on the poll earlier, have no fear, it is a beginners level course here. We will dive a little bit into C# programming fundamentals there, but we will take it nice and easy so that everybody is more or less on the same page. And we will also spend some additional time with you together during the one-on-ones, as well as our Slack group. So yeah, with the courses, you will get an invitation to our Slack groups with the instructors and other students there. And it's fairly active. You can post your own questions, get some extra help from the instructors, and basically just get a lot more clarity on any projects that you're working on there. Again, no experience is required, so beginners, have no fear. If you're a little bit more advanced in your XR journey, so for example, you've worked quite a lot with Unity before, or you have built your own AR, VR apps before, and you would like to take something a bit more advanced, where we basically just work with you to flesh out your idea, add more substance, and just polish it off before it's ready, then the XR Project Accelerator might be the right class for you here. Again, we will build on your existing Unity and C# skills, and the class is delivered over 6 hours of class time per week for a period of 8 weeks. And again, you get the one-on-one support with our expert developers like Jerry here. So that is, a tremendously good resource if you get stuck somewhere or would like some extra help on your own projects. Now, again, with the individual courses, that could also be an area where you take your education in. If you're looking for something a little bit more niche or a little bit more specialized, we got you covered as well in our shorter courses. And those primarily are C# scripting fundamentals in Unity, introduction to XR design, for all you Quest owners out there, Quest development foundations, and a really interesting HoloLens 2 foundations and hand tracking and UI course as well. And that actually brings me to my next poll here. And I'm very curious, what device does everybody have, or what are you currently building on? So feel free to head over to the right-hand side on the polls tab here and let me know. I'm very, very curious to see what we're working with here. I've got a HoloLens owner, Rift, iPhone, Android. All right, Oculus Quest. Quite a bit of Oculus Quest owners out there. That is always awesome to see. And with the Oculus Quest 2 launch, it's such a powerful device at a fairly low price point there. So I'm not too surprised to see lots of Quest owners here. But yeah, moving on. Now, all of our courses also come with payment plans as well. So we offer 3, 6, and 12-month payment plans to make the courses a bit more accessible to a wider range of audience here. And we would be happy to chat with you about any of the payment plans here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Now, again, huge thank you from the CircuitStream admissions team. I'm sure you've seen my colleagues here, Kyle and Steph, being active in the chat here. If you have any questions about anything what we discussed here, or you would like to get some guidance on how to continue your XR development journey here, feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. And an easy way to do it is actually to head over directly to our website here and just start a live chat. We're online most hours of the day, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible here. Alternatively, feel free to head over to our course webpage. And if you download a course syllabus and or request that somebody gets in touch with you, that's another way to get in touch with us here. Or just simply send an email to education@circuitstream.com, and we will help you out with any of your inquiries there. Now, we're going to jump into the Q&A session, where I'm going to pick out some questions here from the questions tab on the right-hand side, and we'll work through with them with Jerry here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
All right, so I think the first thing I'm going to show here is how to build that. There's lots of questions which are similar. So let me real quick show you guys how to build that for an Android device. The first thing you need to notice is that you need to have your Android on developer mode. And how to do that, it depends on the model and version. So you need to Google how to add your device to developer mode. And then you need to connect that using a USB to a PC. But if you have that in developer mode, everything that you need to do is go here on File, Build Settings, and then there is this Run Device. So it's going to list all the devices that we have connected. Mine is this Motorola here, for example. I just select this guy and click on Build and Run. So when you click on Build and Run, it's going to ask where do you want to save the APK, which is the file that is installed in the Android phone. So you just click on Save, and then it's going to build it and deploy that to your device. Someone also asked how you can share that with other people. So if they use Androids, you can just share this APK with them, and they will be able to install. Or if you have the application completed and polished and you think that's good to go, you can publish that to the Google Play Store, just by creating an account and uploading your APK in there. So it's going to be available on the Google Play Store, and people can download from there. But basically, that's it. In order to build things, you go to File, Build Settings, and then you click on Build and Run. Just make sure that your Android is on developer mode and being recognized right here. After the workshop, I can share one document on how to set those things up. You're going to need to find out how your Android works. But other than that, it's basically similar. For iPhone, okay, so for iPhone, it's a little bit more complex. I don't have support for iPhone here because I'm on a PC. You need to be on a Mac. You need to install the iOS support. And when you click on Build, it's not going to deploy directly to your device. It's going to create an Xcode project. You need to open that on Xcode and click on Play from there. I can share some resources on the post-workshop email as well on how to do that. There are a couple more extra steps for Android, for iOS, and I cannot show them on a Mac. On a Windows, it only works on a Mac. But basically, that's it. All right, so let me stop sharing here again.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so Jerry, let's pull some questions here from the question tab here. I'm just going to answer one live right there. How was the app created here best distributed?
All right, so the best way to distribute an app is using the stores. So for Android, for example, is the Google Play Store, and for iOS, this is the App Store. You need to have an account on those two, and they're not free. The Android one is actually one-time payment. It's cheap, I can remember. And the iOS one is annual payment. I think it's $100 per year, if I'm not mistaken. But you need to have an account of those stores. And the good thing is that they're gonna distribute it for all of the devices out there. People can find their application on the stores. If you don't want to have a bound with the store, it's a lot more complex. For iOS, for example, it's not possible unless the people have jailbreak and application devices. So I strongly recommend that you use the store. For iOS, you can just distribute the APK, but people will need to trust that source. So it's a little bit more complex. So I think the best way is actually using the stores.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Another interesting question here from Sebastian. Does AR Foundation include WebXR in the newest version? No.
No, not really. So AR Foundation uses ARKit, ARCore. It uses the native providers, and it only works on the device. So WebXR is a completely different technology. It's not super powerful, not super stable yet. Unity doesn't deal with that super well. There are a couple of third-party plugins that allow you to do that, but only with AR Foundation, you're not able to deploy anything to the browser using WebXR, unfortunately.
All right. Good. Another interesting question here from David. I believe we maybe have answered this one right here, but just for everyone again. Just wanted to confirm if I want to create an iOS version, I have to export the app to a Mac?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I see Leah and a couple of, and Zveta, I think, a couple of people here discussing about that. So yes, if you have a Mac, you can actually build for Android and iOS. That's okay. If you have only Windows, you can only build for Android. If you want to build for iOS, the maximum you can do is actually generating the Xcode project on the Windows, but then you need to drag that to a Mac and build from there. So this is like Apple constraints, because you need to generate a couple of certificates so they know who is building what where. So actually, you need to be on a Mac to deploy to the app, to the iOS, and even to the Apple Store, to the App Store. So yes, if you have a Mac, you can build for Android and iOS. If you only have a Windows, you can only build for Android, not for iOS.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, another question here from Grayland. Where can I find AR foundations in the packages?
Where can I find? In the package manager. So you go to Windows Package Manager and search for AR Foundation. It's going to be there.
All right. Okay, a question here from Kiva. Can I deploy to my Surface?
Good question. Actually, you can. Yeah, I think you can. The Surface runs the Windows Mixed Reality platform, right? So I think so. Yeah, you can. So in order to deploy to the Surface, you just need to add one more plugin, which is the Windows. I can't remember the name. Let me find it here. Just 1 second. Package Manager. It's the Windows Mixed Reality, Windows XR plugin. So yeah, it works. You just need to install the Windows XR plugin. Cool.
All right.
I have never tested that, but it should work because the stack of technology supports that. So if you have the chance to test that on the Surface, just let me know. But that should work.
Okay. All right. Question here from Beatrice. Can we use this in a web app?
No, not really. Yeah. So I think it's the same question. The AR Foundation doesn't support web AR, web XR. So it's a completely different technology. So up to this point, no. What we did today is not going to work for web.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Another question here from David. How is this tested during development? Can we use a portable webcam, for example, Razer Kyra?
No, that's a good question. So actually not, because the AR Foundation uses the AR Kit and the AR Core, and they rely on a couple of features that only the mobile camera have. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but mobile phone cameras, they're super powerful. They have like lots of different features, not only capturing image. So that's why it doesn't work with a mobile webcam. You actually need to build and test on the device. There are a couple of helpers out there. Like there is one plugin which is called the AR Foundation Remote. You can buy that on the asset store. It's gonna allow you to test on the mobile while the mobile is plugged to the editor, so you don't need to build every single time. But just a simple webcam doesn't work. There's another plugin which is called Vuforia. It's more limited on a couple of things, but it works with a regular webcam. So if you define it just needs to use a mobile webcam, regular webcam, I would recommend using Vuforia instead of AR Foundation in this case.
All right. Okay, looks like we have an error with the package manager here with Sarah. She's asking, well, she's getting an error message when opening the package manager.
Unable to open the package manager. It says new reference, object reference not set. Just try. Well, probably just Unity being weird. Try to click on the console and then clear and see if it disappears. If it disappears, it's not on your side. It's just Unity doing weird stuff. If it doesn't disappear, just ping me. But I think it's like just while Unity was importing. Oh, you cannot even open the package manager. You cannot even open the package manager. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Try to close Unity and open that again. Oh, you solved. All right, great.
Perfect.
Amazing.
All right.
So how did you solve it? How did you solve it? Just let us know in the chat. I reopened. Yeah, that was what's suggested. So sometimes Unity has a couple of weird. It's like a huge system, lots of things going on. So sometimes that those happen. You can just.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right, seems to fix everything. All right, here's a pretty interesting one by Lee. Is it worth buying a used HoloLens 1 for AR development?
That's a good question. I think it depends on how much it costs, but I would finally buy one. Like the HoloLens 2 it's better in lots of aspects, but if you are learning and if you are starting to develop, you can learn lots of things using the HoloLens 1. So yeah, depending on the price, I would finally get it.
Yeah, those are quite pricey when used, so good luck hunting for a used one there, Lee. All right, another question here from Genevieve. How do you export, and how can I share with people?
Well, I think I answered that. So for exporting, you need to build that either to Android or iOS. I show it here for Android. I'm going to include in the material how to build for iOS as well, because I cannot demonstrate. And to share with people, if it's Android, you can just share the APK with them. If it's iOS, we need to go through the Apple process and use test flight or something like that, or publish to the stores. So you can publish to both Google Play Store or the App Store, Apple App Store.
All right, thank you, Jerry. All right, Steve is asking, can you attach an item like an actual snowflake to be what the particle system creates instead of just the white glowing orb?
No, not really. So unless it's a texture, if it's a module, not, because the particle system, it works with planes. So every particle is a plane, and you can paint that plane with a texture. So you can use a texture of a snowflake. Yeah, so a texture of a snowflake, yes, and you can make that seem like it is 3D. But the 3D model of a snowflake, not really. But I think what you're trying to achieve in there is basically just having it similar to a snowflake. So yes, you can use a texture for that. Just a texture with the background transparent, that would work just fine.
All right, awesome. All right, Sveta is asking, could you please suggest exporting animations from Blender to Unity properly?
Yeah, so you just need to export them as an FBX file, and that would be great. So if you have like, there are two ways of doing that. Usually what we do is we have all of the animations in the same timeline in Blender, so it's easier to manage. So you can just have your model animated in a single timeline and export that to an FBX file. Then we import the FBX file in Unity, and you can split the animations in there. But that's usually what I do. I animate everything in a single timeline and export that in the FBX file.
All right, very cool. Okay, Liz is asking, where do you have the project so that someone else's phone can access the content when they scan the card?
Where do we have the project? I think it's a very similar question. Like if it's Android, you can just export the APK and share that, or you can publish to the stores. So if you want other people to have access to your app, the best way is having that to the stores, or you can just share the APK which was built. If it's Android, if it's iOS, actually, that's not possible. So you need to go through Apple somehow.
All right. Another similar question here by Jason. How do we export then view on Android or iOS devices?
How do we export the view? Oh, I think it's the same question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same question. I'm going to share a tutorial on how to export to Android and iOS in the email. That's a really good, well, let me put that in the chat as well. There is one tutorial on the Unity Learn portal. We have the step-by-step for building iOS and Android. So that's this one. I'm going to add that to the email as well, but you can check that later. So that's basically the same question.
All right, perfect. All right, Sombrero is asking, how do we print upon completion? I assume it's the card portion of it.
Oh, well, it's any piece of paper. So you just need to print that. I don't have a printer, so that's why I'm testing that on the mobile phone. I'm just testing that on the screen of my phone. But you just need to print it in a piece of paper, like anything that you have. Like I have those things here. Anything that you have. I even tested with this thing, which is a SSD device. So if you have the image printed anywhere, it's gonna work. So for printing that, is just having any piece of paper.
All right, nice and easy. Christian is asking, can you create a target from something in the real world? For example, if I target a sidewalk and someone scans this part of the sidewalk, can I create an AR experience like this?
Yes, so actually you can. That's a little bit more complex than just image. It's just a little bit more complex than just image. There are lots of ways of doing that. It can be, for example, object recognition instead of image recognition. So you can actually recognize the sidewalk. You can use area targets. You can use geolocation. You can combine all of those. So it becomes a little bit more complex, but that's finally possible. So the example that we shared today, the technique that we're using today, it's only for image. So you need to have like an image. So if your sidewalk has an image in there, it's going to work. But if you're using the shape of the sidewalk or something in there, you need to use other techniques such as object recognition or area targets or something like that. But yeah, that's finally possible, just a little bit more complex.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jerry. All right, interesting question here by Jared. Is there a way to make the text or image rotate or face the real-world camera, or will that always be locked by the position of the canvas?
That's a good question. So by default, it's locked by the position of the canvas, but you can write a script to make it always look at the camera position. So there is one function in the vector tree, which is the look at. Let me share that documentation here. So in any transform, we have the look at position. We can just call that in the update and use as the target your camera. So it's going to be facing the camera. And then we need to adjust the Y, so it's going to flip in weird ways. But yeah, that's possible. You just need to have a script to control that. Without a script, it's going to be respecting the position of the canvas.
All right, awesome. Okay. Question here from Beatrice, might be another very similar one here. Is it possible to avoid the apps if you export it for the web?
Yes, but not with the approach that we're using here, not with AR Foundation. So if you want to use web apps, WebXR, you need to use other stack of technology. Unity doesn't support that natively yet. So there are a couple of 3D third-party plugins that does it, but natively with AR Foundation, that's not possible.
Okay. Interesting one here by Alberto. Is AR Foundation more powerful than Vuforia?
That's hard to answer, actually, because they're very similar, yet they have different stuff. So I'm not sure if it's possible to answer in that way, like what's more powerful. They're just different. Like I prefer AR Foundation. I think that AR Foundation is more flexible. There are more things that I can actually do with less effort in AR Foundation. And I can also deploy that to different platforms just using the XR plugin management. With Vuforia, that's a little bit more complex. But Vuforia has like better image tracking, for example. So the tracking in Vuforia is a lot better than the one in AR Foundation. It works with every regular camera because it uses a different technique. So it's not that one is more powerful than the other. They're just different. I think it depends on the nature of the application. Another thing is, Vuforia is paid. Like for simple applications, you can use the free tier, but if it's a commercial thing, you need to pay. And AR Foundation is free. So there are differences. I don't think I can classify which one is better. I just think they are different.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Here, interesting question by Peter. The demo does not seem to work. I'm gonna manifest merger failed with multiple errors message. I tried to build for a Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus.
Yeah, so I've seen this error before. I'm gonna share one link with you that shows how to fix it. I think it's happening in the newest versions of Android, like Android 11 and the ones which are more recent than that. So there is this link in the chat. You just need to follow the steps. So we need to edit the manifest and make something manual, which is super, super weird, but that's gonna fix it for you.
All right, perfect. Interesting one here from Brian. Can I use LiDAR from the iPhone 12 to build a scene?
Yeah, actually you can. So the LiDAR allows you to scan space and have that in a point cloud and convert that to a mesh. So yeah, I haven't tried that myself yet with the iPhone 12, only with other LiDAR systems, like other devices that have LiDAR or similar technologies. But yeah, that's definitely possible. That's definitely possible.
All right, awesome. Good question here from Clemens. I am on Android. My phone is connected and in developer mode. Unity recognized it. Then I click on build and run. It's asking me to give it a name and location, but then nothing happens. Any idea what I'm doing wrong?
Something is happening. So maybe you can check the console. Maybe you have some error in there, and it's gonna point you in the right direction. So if you have the Unity recognizing your device, that's like the first step. You probably have some error in the console.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Okay. Well, one last similar question, I think, that we already answered earlier here from Leah. What software would you recommend if you want to create AR for the web instead of an app?
There is this, I can't remember the name. I would need to follow up on that. I tested two plugins this week, and they are not in Unity. They are like different things, and they work quite well on the web browser. But now I just can't remember the name. So I'm gonna follow up. Who asked that question?
Leah Tarachansky.
Okay, so let me just
I'm gonna make a note.
Yeah, I'm taking a note here, and I will follow up with you because I do know like two frameworks that I tested, but I can't remember their names.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, we are going towards the end of the questions period here. So if you do have any last minute questions, now is the time to post them. We do have a couple more here that we're going to answer. But yeah, if you have anything else, please drop it in the questions tab now. But yeah, Sveta is asking a question here. Could you suggest ways to be safe when working on Unity, as few times my PC has hanged?
Can you suggest ways to be safe when working on Unity, as few times my PC has hanged? Well, I have never experienced hanging. So there are a couple of possibilities in there. The first one is maybe your computer is not powerful enough for Unity. So maybe you need to have like a better graphics card or more RAM. So I don't know, hard to answer because I don't know exactly what is the hardware that you want in there. So that would be my first guess. The second one is maybe you're making infinite loops in your code. So if you make, for example, a loop that never finishes, it's gonna hang your Unity every time that you play that. But I don't think that's the case. I would bet that maybe your hardware is not sufficient for what Unity requires. So maybe you can check if you have the drivers updated, like the graphic card, or what is your graphic card, what is the GPU, and RAM that you have. But I would suggest that that's the problem in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. All right, we're just going to wrap this up after one last question here. So there we go. Question here by Clements. Would love to know how to build or export to my phone to start playing with it as soon as possible, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think I answered that question like 4 or 5 times. So I will include the building steps in the post email, so you can actually follow those ones. But basically, you need to build and run from the editor, and you need to have your device connected. For Android, it's a little bit easier. For iOS, you need to be on a Mac. You need to go through the to the Xcode. But I'm gonna include, it's in the chat here, but I'm including in the follow-up email as well.
All right, fantastic. All right, so we have 3 last questions that we're getting to that just came in here. So we're just gonna go ahead. Question here from Beatrice. Can I also be uploaded on the frameworks for web? Again, very similar one.
Frameworks for web. So yeah, just get a name. I can't remember the name of the thing I was testing, but there are a couple of frameworks that are outside of Unity that works well in the web AR. So let me just get your name here and follow up through email because I just can't remember the name of them.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry.
So WebGL doesn't work with, so WebGL is one thing for regular applications, that's the case, and Unity can build that, but that's not for AR. So Web AR or WebXR in general, this is different from WebGL. And there are a couple of frameworks that work with that. I just can't remember the name of them right now, but I tested a couple of them outside of Unity. So Unity can build for WebGL, but not for WebXR yet.
All right. I got a question here from Jared. Can you have more than one card on screen? And if so, can you make the two different animations interact when both images are being scanned at the same time?
Yeah, finally. So you can have up to 1,000 images in the library, and I think 500 images in the screen. There is a limitation, but it's huge. Like I can't remember the numbers, but you can have multiple images on the screen. You just need to have them on the library. And in the case what we're describing here, you can finally do that, like have two animations and then interact. But we will need to write some code just to detect when one or the other distract and what to do in those cases. But yeah, that's finally possible.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Okay. Oh, interesting one by Anastasia. Is there a host for AR applications such that you do not need to download an AR app? For example, 812, but much cheaper or free?
I think that's the same question. Like I can't remember the names of the frameworks right there. Like most of my experience in Unity, someone suggested ARJS here, which I think is good as well. That's not one of those that I tested, but that's a possibility. So you could try, for example, ARJS, or there's another one, Adobe Aero, I think it's another one. So there are a couple of alternatives out there, but Unity is not supporting AR, web AR yet. So I don't know. I need to follow up on those and suggest a couple of them.
All right, perfect. Okay, last question for today. We have a question here from Anna. Are there any PDF guides for beginners, like step-by-step?
So we're going to be sharing a couple of resources after this workshop. One of them is the step-by-step on how to prepare your scene and all the things that we have in here, like how to get AR Foundation, AR Core, and AR Kit in your project. So we have a couple of them. There is our blog where we have a couple of tutorials in there, and they are very well explained. So there is one that was launched just last week, which is very similar to this one, but how to make a business card in AR. So we can actually check that as well. And you can find a couple of simple tutorials on Unity Learn portal, which is free as well. So yeah, there are a couple of alternatives out there, but we're definitely going to share in the email a couple of resources after this workshop, so you can get from the beginning.
All right. All right, Jerry, thank you so much. That wraps up the Q&A part. And again, really appreciate having you here tonight for our technical demonstration here. It's always a pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone who was able to join us tonight. We really, really appreciate that. And with that, well, again, we will circulate a recording to everybody here, as well as some project files as well. And yeah, if you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so on our website, on our course page, in the live chat, or just shoot us an email to education@circuitstream.com. And with that, yeah, again, thank you, everyone, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and see you all in the next year. Thank you so much, everyone. Right. Take care.